Tragedy in Chatham, Kent. A rollover crash kills a 7-year-old girl. The driver, her mother's boyfriend, is charged with impaired driving. The health unit in Windsor, Essex is worried about COVID fatigue as the region sees another death after they tested positive for COVID-19. A live look outside right now, 28, mainly sunny, and that heat warning has ended. Colette Kennedy with all the details in her forecast tonight. I'm Chris Hensing, thanks for joining us. A fatal crash in Chatham is under investigation. A man allegedly driving under the influence last night with 3 children in the vehicle. The CBC's Tamina Aziz is on Jacob Road and Given Line live tonight. This is where that collision took place. Tamina, what more do we know about what happened?
Chris, it's quiet here. I've seen very few cars pass this area just behind me here. Not at all busy, but that wasn't the case just last night. We know that a 34-year-old man has been driving his girlfriend's children aged 4, 7, and 11 just along this road behind me. Police were called on the scene at 9 last night and closed the area for 12 hours. The car was found upside down in a water-filled ditch, which is just next to the road here. The man was allegedly under the influence. The 7-year-old died on scene. Police say the other children that were in the vehicle are in stable condition in the hospital, and they say he shouldn't have been driving at all. He is currently suspended from driving for remedial measures and unpaid fines. I spoke to Heather Baker, who founded Chatham, Kent's Mothers Against Drunk Driving. She says this accident was senseless, preventable, and tragic.
The message has been out. Mad Canada has been sending the message for over 30 years. The police are advocating for it as well. It's a choice, and it just doesn't seem. The message has been going for 30 years now that there's still people out there today that don't have the message, that aren't listening to the message, and lives, they're putting themselves at risk, their families at risk, the community at risk for a choice that shouldn't be made nowadays.
She says the last time Chatham has seen a fatal crash due to someone being under the influence was 13 years ago. The driver is in custody and waiting a bail hearing. He faces six charges, including impaired driving causing death, criminal negligence causing death, impaired driving causing bodily harm, criminal negligence causing bodily harm, and 2 counts of driving while under suspension. The traffic unit has taken over the investigation. Chris.
Thanks for this, Tamina. The CBC's Tamina Aziz live tonight in Chatham, Kent. COVID fatigue, it's a real issue. Canada's Chief Medical Officer of Health brought it up last week, and today the Medical Officer of Health for Windsor, Essex spent most of the morning briefing going back to the basics.
Today, I want to use this opportunity to get back to some of the basics that we have covered in the past with respect to chain of transmission.
And with that, Dr. Ahmed went over how this virus spreads. The virus that causes COVID, he says, lives in our respiratory tract and spreads through droplets, stuff caused by sneezes and coughs. An infected person can touch their mouth, their nose, pick up a droplet, and give it to someone else through a handshake. The person who now has that droplet on their hands can infect themselves if they touch their face without washing properly. That's why public health asks people to wear a mask, to stop shaking hands, and keep 2 meters away from anyone not in their bubble. A person is considered infectious, says Ahmed, before the onset of symptoms, at least 48 hours prior. The health unit contacts a positive person within 24 hours of the test results most of the time. Then they collect a list of close contacts and start doing interviews. That's done within 48 hours. If symptomatic, that person's told to get a test. If asymptomatic, they're asked to self-isolate for 14 days. Now, a high-risk contact, that's someone in the same household, someone who was a close contact of body fluids or spent more than 15 minutes inside of the 2-meter zone with a positive case. Now, all of this being said today, because of what's happening over the last 7 days, 263 cases have been announced since last Wednesday. 42 are under investigation. More than a third of the remaining cases are people not working on a farm. The health unit says they're worried about community spread as more things open up. And Ahmed says that Windsor, Essex may be missing one of the basic messages of the pandemic:
what we are identifying is now the number of close contacts is increasing, which is of a concern. And I think we must recognize that when we are talking about these social bubbles, when we are talking about reducing the number of close contacts, that is the most critical piece to break the chain of transmission. Because once it starts to go into from one social circle to another social circle to another social circle, the risk multiplies significantly.
Sticking with the health unit here, a pair of municipalities in Essex County want more data from the health unit. Essex Council sent a letter to the health unit asking for a more detailed breakdown of COVID-19 positive cases. Jacob Barker following the story. Why do they want this additional data here, Jacob?
Well, Chris, they want more specifics because they say it'll help inform their decision making when it comes to COVID-related issues. Every day, the health unit gives us data, some days more than others. Well, municipalities look at that information and make their decisions in their communities based on those numbers. Things like whether to open the pools or the beaches, whether or not to have an open-air market such as they do over the weekends in Kingsville. So this is what it looks like daily, a general view of the entire Windsor, Essex County region. And while it does show the locations of the workplaces are in and outbreaks and specific long-term care homes and retirement homes, that's about as far as it goes for specifics in communities. And then on Friday, we get this. It's a weekly epidemiological survey with a few more specifics. It does include a breakdown of where the cases are by community and the rate of infections, but municipalities want more than this, and they're calling on the health unit to break down their data even further, showing a more granular view of where the cases are being detected.
We have a lot of people in fear that are afraid to go and engage with our community and with our businesses. If I knew there were no cases, I know that I can now safely wear my mask and go into the community and frequent these businesses. Whether people change their behavior or not is up to the people. People get the choice when they're given the information. If they find out there's a hotspot, then maybe they'll cancel their dinner plans, and probably rightfully so.
Yes, everybody has to pretend that everybody around them is positive. But if there is an area, then we have to zone in on it and take extra precautions and make sure that it doesn't spread.
Some interesting comments there, Jacob, but what are councils doing to push the health unit to make that change, and what's the health unit think about all this?
Well, specifically, Essex Council has written a letter to the health unit asking for more granular data, and last night a resolution was passed in Kingsville to the same effect. CBC News asked Dr. Wajid Ahmed, medical health officer, about the community's concerns today. He says he has some concerns of his own. While there are some health units that do break down their information in a more comprehensive way, he worries that in a more rural setting where the population is more sparse, it may be easier to figure out who the information is referring to. Ahmed also said that giving out that information may give people a false sense of security.
The information that we provide could be as accurate as what we know, but there could be other risks. As much as I appreciate the need for more data, I also don't want to undermine the importance of taking public health measures, and also do not mix this message with the need for more data to and dilute the importance of all this messaging that we are doing.
So, Chris, other communities are interested in knowing more, including Lakeshore. Tonight, a councillor there will be asking council to support the letter Essex has put forward to the health unit. Chris?
Thanks, Jacob. The CBC's Jacob Barker live tonight. We have an update here on a story that we brought you last week. One contract between Ontario and Switch Health, the company hired to do on-farm testing here in Windsor, Essex, has finished. But we just learned that they're one of two vendors that will continue on-farm testing this week. We got the news just before we went to air. Ontario Health says that it was a short-term contract that started in June, which Switch Health. That's the first contract. Now, the NDP took issue with this because a lobbyist for Switch Health is Doug Ford's former communications director. Ontario Health has now, they say today, picked Switch Health over 15 other vendors to continue with on-farm testing. 19 of 176 farms were tested, and there is another group as well that will be part of this. It's called Driver Check. They've been awarded a contract for on-site testing. Now, they can do that anywhere in Ontario, but specifically we've been looking at on-farm testing here in Windsor, Essex. Officials say that they've also seen an increase in farm workers at the COVID Assessment Centre in Leamington. Now, there are 3 regions that will find out if they move to Stage 3 tomorrow. Windsor, Essex, we're one of them. Premier Doug Ford spoke about the high case count here earlier today.
We're still keeping an eye on, always on Toronto, Peel, and especially Essex. And my heart breaks for those folks in Essex. Man, they're getting a tough time of it, but we're going to help them try to move into Stage 3 as quickly as possible. And we'll have an announcement about all 3 regions tomorrow, Toronto, Peel, and Essex.
Police have charged a man in Chatham, Kent, who returned from Florida for failing to comply with the mandatory 14-day isolation order. Police say that the man flew in from Florida on July 10th and failed to self-isolate. The 41-year-old was issued a $1,130 fine. Now, Police Chief Gary Cohn says that it's unfortunate and disheartening that anyone would place themselves, and more importantly others, at risk by not following the simple direction provided to them in respect to self-quarantining. Now, with just weeks left of summer holidays, millions of Canadian students still don't know what the new school year is going to look like. Meanwhile, both parents and officials are grappling with some tough choices. The ongoing risk from the pandemic versus the long-term consequences of kids skipping in-person classes. Christine Birak reports.
The sneaky monster crept.
Having her children home for months hasn't been easy, but Narissa Critchlow isn't eager to send them back to school either.
Not comfortable at all. To be frank, I just feel that we are not close enough to quite understanding the virus itself.
Most studies examining kids in COVID-19 are trying to answer 2 questions.
What is the likelihood of children getting the infection, and what is the likelihood of them spreading the infection?
A recent analysis looked at 550 COVID-19 cases among children under 18 in China, Italy, and Spain. It found just 9 children had a severe infection. 1 who had underlying conditions died. When it comes to infecting caregivers, a large study from South Korea found children under 10 transmitted the virus less often to adults at home, while those between the ages of 10 and 19 spread the virus as well as adults do. Researchers speculate young children may not sneeze or cough as hard, and they're shorter, and their infected droplets may not travel as far. Still, when schools do reopen, there will be new clusters of cases. But doctors say a lot will depend on the infection control measures that are put in place by schools and what's happening just outside of them.
We've seen in other jurisdictions that the safest way to open schools is where the community transmission rates are low.
So many times I hear, well, you can't be too careful.
Some doctors argue children may not be falling ill, but they're suffering in other ways. Existing evidence shows chronic absenteeism, even in kindergarten, has consequences.
There's long-term impact on their cognitive development, on their social development, on their overall ability to function in society.
For me, it's really important that the schools have some sort of testing involved.
New saliva tests for the virus could make that happen, but not by September. Experts say schools and communities must act now on what's been learned or risk harming a future generation. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Health Canada is authorizing the use of the drug remdesivir with the treatment of people who have the coronavirus. Now, the drug is being permitted for use on a small number of patients who have severe symptoms of COVID-19, pneumonia, and require extra oxygen to help them breathe. Remdesivir is the first drug to be authorized by Health Canada for the treatment of the coronavirus. It can now be used by patients who are older than 12 years old. The drug will only be used in healthcare facilities where patients can be closely monitored. Now, this pandemic sure has changed the way a lot of things are operating. This year, Windsor's International Film Festival has had to think outside of the box office. Later this summer, it's hoping to hold a drive-in festival. Dale Molnar has more.
Where I'm standing right now used to be the famous for drive-in movie theater complex. Well, ironically, there's a movie theater here once again, but it's been closed due to the pandemic. But now the old-fashioned drive-in movies are expected to make a comeback right here on Windsor's riverfront. On Monday, Windsor City Council agreed to waive the fees, most of them rental fees, for a drive-in film festival organized by Windsor International Film Festival. WIF is expecting to rent the Riverfront Festival Plaza, the Civic Terrace, and Municipal Lot 32. That's according to a report that went to council. The fees, most of them rental fees, like I said, amount to just under $27,000. Now, WIF is keeping their cards close to their chest. They're not releasing a lot of details at this point, but the chair of the Windsor Downtown BIA is happy to hear about the drive-in coming here.
I'm really excited for them, whatever they have planned, because it's one of my favorite, personally, my favorite events that happen in the downtown, in the city in general. So for them to be doing something during this time, I know they've had a lot of events, including their main film festival, canceled for this year. Them being able to do something is fantastic news.
Now, according to the report, WIF will take care of all the other associated costs with this drive-in festival, including video and audio equipment. Organizers decided in June to cancel the November festival. They had hoped to capitalize on 2019's momentum. Organizers boasted it had been a banner year with 42,000 tickets sold. Drive-ins are sprouting up around the country. The Toronto International Film Festival will be using drive-ins as part of its events. Now, if everything goes ahead as planned, the film festival will be held between August 28th and September 12th. The executive director of WIF, Vincent Georgie, says he'll be making a more detailed announcement sometime next week. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
A new respite home is being built in Windsor for children with disabilities.
Families rely on this program so that they get a short break and children can be engaging in meaningful activities and can be an active member in our community.
Now, the program allows kids with disabilities to make new friends and receive out-of-home care. It's currently been running out of this building on Howard Avenue here, but the new one will be developed just next door. Officials say about 50 kids use the program, but they've seen lower turnout in recent weeks because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Instead of having 5 or 6 children in at a time, we have 2 children in at a time now, so that we're able to keep them separate. So the design of this new home will mean that we'll be able to do things like that without really worrying about that, because we feel that whether it's COVID or other things, these are things that we need to be able to deal with.
The mysterious noise that has annoyed Windsor for years has finally quieted down. Since 2011, many have tried to suss out the cause of the Windsor hum. The Canadian government, even they launched an investigation, but the origin was eventually pinpointed to Zug Island, where there's a U.S. steel facility. Now, at the end of 2019, that company said it would be scaling back operations starting April 1st. We take a live look outside here. Certainly sunny today, and there is news of beaches opening up in Windsor. We have more of that on our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. But for the forecast, well, we turn to Colette Kennedy for something like that. She'll give us an idea of if it will be warm enough to go to the beach now that some of them are opening. That's next. And joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. Colette, what a day today was. We were slowly getting into that nice piece of summer where it's just a little bit better than before, but then you get worried about what's coming up next. And that's, I believe the fall word is one of those ones that we, not now, but you know, it's just back of the head.
Just hold your horses.
I'm a person who's just impatient. I'm always ready for what's next.
We are not there yet. No. Right now, I'm just gonna, you know, all you have to do is go outside and you know how it feels, but hey, I'm here. They pay me to show you how it feels as well. So I'm bringing out again today, like we saw yesterday, the how it feels graph. So our dew points yesterday, 24, oppressive. Today, guess what? We dropped back to 16, so that is very close. I know it still borders on humid, but it's kind of different relative to southwestern Ontario, right? So close to comfy. Big changes in terms of what happened, a real change, departure in those dew points. So much more comfortable. That doesn't mean we are knocking on fall's door, so don't listen to Chris. You can listen to him after the weather, but don't listen to him right now. Our pop into 60, the chance of precipitation that we're going to be looking at into Wednesday, rather, 60%. And yeah, overnight tonight too, likely some scattered showers. Seasonal temperatures, though, actually cooling down for a few days through here, just back to where they should be. And we'll take a look at the holiday weekend coming up, the civic holiday, what you can expect. But look at these temperatures right now, just some upper 20s. And yes, there's still a humidex to look at, but it's not up there at 40. It's down there in the lower 30s. Not too much in terms of activity right now, but overnight tonight, I've stopped this at 3 a.m. Not just some scattered showers, but some isolated thunderstorm activity possible. And again, one of those nights where a little rumble of thunder could wake you up there. In the morning hours, just some isolated stuff left behind, but then we may see that kind of filling in after the lunch hour and into the afternoon. So again, could be a wet one. I would be anticipating that and having an umbrella handy. Don't worry about it though into Thursday, Friday, maybe a little extra cloud cover in there, but we should have a couple of dry days as we head towards that holiday weekend. Now overnight tonight, your temperatures look like this. Into tomorrow afternoon, they look like this. See how they're seasonal, and even that humidex value is going to stay in those low 30s, so comfortable. But I did say I would give you a peek into the holiday weekend, and that peak looks like this. We keep those dry conditions for the first half, but then into Sunday, I do have a chance for some showers, and it looks like, Chris, I'm going to have that into Monday as well. Not a rain out, but it looks like a risk of having some scattered showers and thunderstorms in there.
Colette, that's fine. I'm way past Monday. This holiday weekend you're talking about, I'm thinking of Thanksgiving, all right? I'm living in the future, Colette.
I need to reel you back in. Come
I know.
Come back to us.
I looked it up on my phone here, 56 days until fall. I am way ahead of the curve here. I apologize for this, but thank you, Colette, for always keeping us in check.
I gotta go. We'll see you tomorrow.
Sure thing. Now, coming up next, a very serious twist here, the We Charity and the commission that's been happening, the inquiry, the questions that have been asked. We'll have more on that coming up. The founders of the We Charity testified before a House of Commons committee today.
We Charity agreed to implement the Canada Student Service Grant, not to be helped by government, but to help government and to help young people across Canada.
The brothers say they took on the now canceled federal contract to help not to make a profit off the deal. They both also pushed back against the idea that We was chosen because of their connections with politicians. The grants were meant to help eligible students cover some of their education costs based on volunteer work. The program has been dogged by controversy over the organization's close ties with the Trudeau family and Bill Morneau. Russian scientists are examining the bones of a 10,000-year-old woolly mammoth discovered in the shallows of a Siberian lake. Not exactly as delicate as you might have thought. The find includes bones with some soft tissue still attached, as well as part of a skull and several ribs. Now, the thawing of permafrost in the Arctic has led to more and more similar finds in the region, and some of those pieces date back to 30,000 years ago. Quite the discovery. It's 6:29 p.m. That's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. A reminder, you can always go to cbc.ca/Windsor for more on these local stories. And we leave you now with Power and Politics already in progress. That's up next. Thanks for watching. Make sure you and your family stay safe tonight.